So Assassin's Creed Mirage Valley of Memory just released recently, and I made a full playthrough video going over it, and it was absolutely fantastic. Check it out if you have not. One of my favorite DLCs ever released in the franchise. However, there are quite a few interesting things about the Valley of Memory DLC that you might have overlooked. And so in this video, I've gathered a bunch of them and I want to go over each one. Now do note, this video will contain spoilers for the DLC story. So if you have not played Valley of Memory, first of all, why the hell are you watching this video? Second of all, go play it and then come back to this video after you finished it. Anyway, without any more delay, let's get right into it. Let's start with something that I'd assume almost everybody might have overlooked. So at the start of the Valley of Memory DLC, when you talk to Dervish about travelling to Al-Ula and agree to go, a pre-rendered cutscene plays. It's a beautiful cutscene where Dervish and Basim show their journey all the way to Al-Ula. However, if you look closely at the very start of the cutscene, you can see Nihal hiding in the background as Basim gets on his camel. It's super easy to overlook if you're not paying attention. And since this DLC takes place before the ending of the base game, it does make sense that she's hiding there. Oh, and she's not the only hidden character in this DLC. I'll talk about the other one later on towards the end of the video. Next up, we have something the developers quietly slipped in. So in the DLC story, we head out to find our father who's being held in a Roman fort. The person who took him is a man named Nimlot, and the DLC shows us that he was the son of Al Ghul, the order member that we took out in the base game, where we hanged him from the balcony in a very brutal way. It even shows it in this DLC in a flashback that Nimlot saw his father die. Now, the interesting part is that if you go back to that mission and watch it on YouTube or wherever, Nimlot was not actually there. But with the new Valley of Memory update, the developers went back and changed the scene. If you play that mission now in 2025, you can actually spot Nimlot watching as his father is hanged. So with the new context, it feels a bit sad, but also kind of funny to notice that they patched him into the moment. If you played Assassin's Creed Valhalla, you know that at the start, Sigurd returns to Eivor and brings Basim and Hytham with him. It's explained to us that Sigurd met them in Constantinople. Since Assassin's Creed Mirage is a prequel that focuses on Basim's earlier years, the DLC actually hints at this future trip. When Basim talks to his father at the end of the DLC, he mentions feeling pulled towards Constantinople and not really knowing why as his next place to visit. It's a small bit of foreshadowing for him heading there after Mirage, along with Hytham, who by the way we already know he met in the base game of Mirage as that frightened child on the tower, so that's a 2-in-1 right there. Sticking with Basim and his father near the end of the Valley of Memory DLC, we finally learned something quite massive about Basim's mother. Now, before this DLC came out, we had nothing to go on. We had no name about Basim's mother, we had no description, we just knew that she passed away when Basim was young. However, this update changes that in a big way. During Basim's talk with his father, he mentions that Basim's mother was brought from overseas to the bazaar, and that she came from a land far to the north. He also says her eyes were like the blue sky in winter, which tells us of course she had blue eyes. Now, what makes this particular piece of dialogue very interesting is how well it lines up with Basim's connection to Loki. We already know Basim carries Loki's memories, but one of the biggest questions back in Valhalla was how somebody from the Middle East ended up with Norse ezio DNA at all. Valley of Memory finally gives us a hint. If Basim's mother came from the far north, with features that match what the games often use for people from Scandinavian regions, it suggests that she carried the bloodline linked to Loki. The details about her eyes and her origin are not random. She wasn't from Baghdad, and she was a local. She arrived by boat, which matches how northern travelers moved around during that time. So when Basim's father talks about her coming across the sea from a cold northern land, it fills in a gap Valhalla never explained. Loki's memories did not just appear in Basim for no reason. They were passed through his mother's side, making her one of the few humans tied to the Norse ezio. The DLC does not outright say she was Scandinavian, but the clues that Basim's father says are clear enough. The northern homeland, the blue eyes, the journey by boat, it all fits together. Staying on the topic of Basim and his parents, here's an interesting secret detail you might not realize. So when Basim is searching for his father in the DLC, we find Basim's father's house. Now, this isn't the secret detail, but one of the secret details is that you can see the brooch outline above his house. It's the same one Basim has in his hands. But that's not the point. When you go inside that house and interact with certain objects, one of them is a board game, and it's a board game that Basim and his father used to play. However, what's interesting about this particular board game is it looks a lot like Nefertafel, which I'll probably butcher the pronunciation, and this board game is known for its roots in Norse culture. Now, finding it in his father's home adds a nice bit of context to everything we learned about Basim's mother. If she really came from the far north, it would make sense she brought parts of her own culture with her, even something as simple as a game she grew up with. So that board game sitting on the table ends up being a quiet nod to her background. It helps tie Basim's childhood to the Norse world long before his true connection to Loki ever started to surface. It all makes sense now, doesn't it? Here's something pretty cool, and a nice little throwback to Assassin's Creed 2. So in the side quest, or rather Tale of Al-Ula in the DLC as they're called, you can find a coffee merchant that wants Basim to sample a bit of his coffee, or as the merchant calls it, wine of the bean. Now what you might not realize is that this interaction is actually a playful reference to Ezio Auditore in Assassin's Creed 2. Take a listen to both cutscenes and you will see the reference.
It is sharp upon the tongue.
Its true flavor unfolds with time.
Perhaps a touch of milk might temper its edge.
Preposterous! None in their right mind would taint the brew in such a manner.
A little bitter if you ask me. Just seems lacking somehow. I don't know, have you considered adding sugar maybe? Or latte?
I suppose it's something of an acquired taste.
Here's something that's pretty well hidden. During the story of the DLC near the start, when you walk with Hind, she panics and asks you to get her husband's portraits from a robber camp. Now in that camp, there's a servant that you can rescue. She's being harassed by the robbers. Now this is completely optional by the way. If you save her, she will straight up tell you that she owes you her life and won't forget it. Now keep that in mind because this actually matters later. Now I didn't save her in my playthrough and she ended up dying, so rest in peace. But she actually helps you later in the story if she's still alive. During the prison section where Basim gets tossed into a cell, she shows up at the cell door and even helps you out if you rescued her earlier. She makes poison for you, and when you break out the cell with Enkidu's help, she actually uses the poison on a bunch of guards, making your escape a lot easier. It's a nice little detail and shows how much thought the writers put into this DLC. So if you saved her, good job. I didn't, and I definitely wish I had. And last but not least, here's something that, to be honest, creeped me out a lot. And I'm pretty sure this one is just happening to me. So during the campfire scene where Basim and his father are talking, they're in a quiet spot far from anybody else. It should be completely private. But if you look above Basim's head at one point whilst he's talking to his father, you can see a figure peek out from behind a cave wall. The figure watches them for a moment, then slips back out of sight. Now that's fucking terrifying, because at first I thought it was Nihal, especially since we've seen her already in this DLC at the start. But then I remembered that doesn't fit, because only Basim can see her, so why would she hide? So it's definitely not her. Then I figured it might be a glitch or some random NPC bugging out. But then I remembered this is a pre-rendered motion captured cutscene. This is not gameplay in the game, which means that figure had to be added during development. The weirdest part is that I cannot find this figure in anybody else's footage. It only showed up in my game. I have no clue who it's supposed to be or why somebody is hiding there. It's definitely not part of the bushes either, because the shape is way too clear and it resembles a human being perfectly. I really don't know what that was about, and now I'm terrified. And there we have it. Those are some secret details and things you might have overlooked whilst playing Valley of Memory. If you did enjoy this video, be sure to hit that subscribe button, and I will see you all in the next one.